Gemini, let's get into your reading. All right, the energy coming through today is this. A private conversation about you just took place. Words were exchanged behind closed doors, and what was spoken in that room would genuinely shock you. This was not casual gossip or meaningless chatter. It was a deliberate, vulnerable confession made in confidence. Somebody sat down with a trusted person, opened their mouth, and let every buried truth pour out. Gravity hung thick in that room, because what followed was not small talk. It was absolute reckoning. Your name carried weight in that exchange. Not as a passing mention, but as the entire focal point. Everything circled back to you, every emotion and every struggle confessed, tied directly to your existence. What was said would completely rewrite how you understand this person and their true intentions toward you. Secrets guarded for months finally escaped their lips, and once those words landed, there was no retrieving them. Confession of this magnitude does not happen casually. It requires a breaking point that cannot be postponed further. Pressure built until containment became impossible, and the truth erupted with a force that startled even them. That eruption carried your name at its center, spoken with a tenderness that revealed how deep this runs. Our first card here is the Magician, telling me that conversation was deliberate and strategically timed by them. Nothing about that exchange happened accidentally. This person chose the precise moment when vulnerability felt safest. The Magician confirms they gathered every internal resource before speaking, aligning courage with clarity before opening up. Precision guided their words throughout. Not manipulation, but the measured honesty of a person who cannot afford mistakes. Power in that room belonged entirely to raw truth, and the Magician confirms they wielded it without restraint. Calculated vulnerability defines this card here, the paradox of planning exactly how to become completely unguarded. Intention behind every word was unmistakable, and the listener recognized immediately that this was not performance. They rehearsed authenticity until it stopped feeling rehearsed, and the listener could sense that difference immediately. Moving to the next card, the Three of Swords reveals the painful core buried inside what was confessed. Heartbreak lived at the center of every sentence, and the person listening watched tears forming in real time. Guilt was named aloud for the first time, pulled from their chest and placed openly on the table. Pain masked with composure for weeks finally cracked apart, and what spilled out was far deeper than anticipated. The listener did not interrupt once, because the weight of that confession demanded absolute, reverent silence. Wounds inflicted on this connection were acknowledged without excuse, and ownership was taken fully without any deflection. Losing you was described as the most devastating outcome they have ever genuinely faced, and those words trembled. Admission of that depth silenced the room completely, both people absorbing the magnitude of what had been spoken. Now the Queen of Cups steps forward, telling me the emotional depth of that conversation was genuinely staggering. Feelings described in that room went beyond ordinary attachment, entering territory the listener found almost overwhelming. Queen of Cups confirms the confession carried spiritual intensity, love articulated not as preference, but as vital necessity. Devotion was expressed using vocabulary this person has never accessed before, shocking even themselves with its honesty. Tears arrived involuntarily because the body could no longer contain what lived inside, and composure dissolved completely. Vulnerability at that magnitude left them physically drained afterward, and the trusted confidant sat stunned in silence. Our final card is the Wheel of Fortune, confirming that conversation has already set something irreversible into motion. Momentum shifted the instant those words were spoken, and the trajectory between you both changed permanently right then. Fate was activated by radical honesty, and what was spoken in that room cannot be unsaid or undone. A turning point arrived quietly behind a closed door, and neither participant fully grasps how much just shifted. Forces beyond either person now rearrange circumstances, aligning timing and opportunity in ways that feel almost orchestrated. Every card confirms this private conversation was not merely talk, it was the catalyst igniting everything that follows. Right now, you can sense something shifting in the atmosphere, and your intuition has been whispering about it. Somewhere deep in your gut lives an awareness, a knowing that a conversation about you happened without confirmation. Your energy has been restless lately, almost electric in a way that signals incoming information approaching you. Sleep patterns shifted recently without explanation, and you wake at odd hours, alert and listening to nothing. Guarding your peace became a full-time occupation, and the exhaustion from that constant vigilance weighs heavily. Trusting anyone with the fragile parts of yourself feels dangerous because experience taught you what carelessness costs. Hypervigilance exhausted every ounce of emotional bandwidth, leaving nothing left for the softness you once carried naturally. Our first card is the Four of Swords, confirming you have been sitting in deliberate emotional retreat. Rest was not a luxury chosen willingly. It was a necessity demanded after months of sustained inner conflict. Withdrawal into silence became your sanctuary, the one space where nobody could reach you with new complications. Stillness surrounding you is not avoidance. It is the sacred pause of a person actively rebuilding their reserves. Four of Swords reveals your mind desperately needed permission to stop processing, to simply exist without analyzing. Overthinking carved grooves into your thoughts so deep, the same painful loops now play automatically, without invitation. Mentally, you have been running a courtroom inside your head, prosecuting and defending simultaneously without verdict. Evidence gets examined obsessively from every angle, yet the jury inside refuses to deliver a final, conclusive answer. Clarity refuses to arrive on your schedule, and that waiting has become its own form of quiet suffering. Exhaustion from that internal trial shows in your eyes, even when your mouth insists everything remains fine. Pretending composure while privately crumbling takes enormous energy, and you mastered that performance a long time ago. Admitting fatigue feels like weakness, but the Four of Swords insists that rest is the bravest rebellion. Laying down your sword temporarily does not mean the battle is lost. It means wisdom replaced blind stubbornness. Moving to the next card, the Seven of Wands, confirms you have been actively defending your ground. Standing your ground became instinctive, not because you wanted conflict, but because surrender felt like erasure. Seven of Wands shows a figure elevated above challengers, holding firm despite pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. That image mirrors your current stance precisely, outnumbered by emotions, yet still standing with boundaries fully intact. Defending your worth should never have become a daily task, yet here you stand doing it without complaint. Refusing to lower your standards is not stubbornness. It is hard-earned wisdom learned through painful repetition. Compromise without reciprocity nearly dismantled you before, and you silently vowed that would never happen again. Pride in your resilience coexists uncomfortably with loneliness, and navigating that contradiction drains you constantly. Craving connection while simultaneously fearing it, that tension lives in your chest and never fully releases. Protecting yourself made sense for a season, but the Seven of Wands asks whether those walls still serve. Our final card is the Empress, and she arrives carrying a truth about your inherent, irreplaceable worth today. Abundance already lives inside you, not earned through another person, but woven permanently into your very existence. The Empress confirms your value was never contingent on being chosen. It existed independently before anyone arrived. Recognition of your own beauty has been overdue, and the Empress demands you finally honor what lives inside. Nurturing others came naturally to you, but somewhere along the way, you forgot to extend that gentleness inward. Softness is not a flaw, despite what survival taught. It is the quality that makes your presence unforgettable. Reclaiming tenderness after hardening yourself for protection, that is the quiet revolution happening inside you right now. Permission to feel safe without validation already belongs to you, and no past wound holds authority over it. Every card on your side confirms one undeniable reality. You deserve peace arriving without conditions or expiration. All right, the energy shifts now into the private inner world of this person, and it runs very deep. That conversation did not end when the room emptied. It continued silently inside their head for hours. Replaying every spoken word became an obsession, analyzing whether too much was revealed or not quite enough. Vulnerability of that magnitude left them feeling skinless, exposed in a way they have not experienced in years. Regret about the timing battles with relief that truth finally escaped, and neither side wins cleanly here. Wondering whether the listener will keep confidence or betray it, that question creates a low, constant anxiety. Our first card, revealing their inner world, is the King of Wands, confirming fierce, passionate energy driving them. Fire lives at the center of everything they feel, not gentle warmth, but the consuming kind, demanding action. King of Wands shows a figure seated in authority, gripping a wand that represents pure, ambitious willpower. Passion for this connection is not passive or patient. It burns with an intensity that frightens even them. Leadership over their emotions has been attempted repeatedly, but the king confirms the fire resists all control. Channeling that heat into productive expression became their greatest challenge, because intensity without direction destroys everything. Desire to reclaim what was lost fuels every private thought, operating on a frequency that lives beyond reason. Ambition applies to this connection the same way it drives everything else. They refuse to accept permanent defeat. Competitive instinct whispers that giving up would be the only true failure, one they could never recover from. Pride in every other area of life means nothing compared to this, and that realization humbles them entirely. Admitting powerlessness in this one area contradicts everything they built their identity around, and it terrifies them. Fierceness they normally direct outward has turned inward, and the internal battle is harder than any external one. Confronting their own flaws requires a bravery, one that no amount of professional success ever prepared them for. Moving to the next card, the Eight of Cups reveals a painful reckoning about what must be abandoned. Walking away from old patterns happens inside them quietly, a slow, deliberate departure from behaviors that caused damage. Eight of Cups shows a figure leaving stacked cups behind, turning toward a mountain path lit by moonlight. That image confirms voluntary abandonment of comfort zones, choosing the harder, uphill road toward genuine, lasting transformation. Familiar habits that once felt protective now register as the exact poison, the thing that contaminated everything built. Recognizing personal toxicity required a mirror they avoided for months, and finally facing it shattered their composure. Grief about the version of themselves that caused harm sits in their chest, heavy and impossible to dismiss. Mourning who they were while becoming someone different, that exhausting identity crisis happens entirely behind closed doors. Eight of Cups also confirms they are not fleeing consequences. They walk deliberately toward uncomfortable, honest accountability. Each step away from the old self costs something, and the loneliness of that solo journey weighs heavily. Our final card is the Hanged Man, revealing a complete inversion of perspective happening deep inside their mind. Everything believed about love and control has been turned upside down, suspended until a new understanding fully forms. Hanged Man confirms they voluntarily hang in discomfort, choosing to stay in tension rather than escaping prematurely. Surrender looks different than imagined. It is not weakness, but the deliberate release of every illusion of control. Patience, never possessed before, is being cultivated painfully, grown from the soil of failure and forced humility. Seeing the connection from a completely reversed angle, they now understand dynamics they were entirely blind to before. Reversed vision reveals patterns they participated in unknowingly, and that discovery carries a shame they cannot outrun. Sacrifice happens internally, without announcement, pieces of their ego dismantled daily to make room for genuine change. Suspension in uncertainty is the hardest thing they have ever endured, and choosing to remain takes immense courage. Every card confirms a person being quietly rebuilt from the inside, without audience and without guarantee of outcome.
All right, the energy moves into pure action now, and concrete steps are being taken that directly involve you. Following that private conversation, decisions were made and specific plans got put into immediate, deliberate motion. Communication channels dormant for weeks are being reopened, messages drafted and carefully revised before sending. Outreach happens through indirect routes first, testing the waters before any direct approach gets formally attempted. Mutual connections are being contacted strategically, not for gossip, but to gather intelligence about where you stand. Questions about your life are asked casually to nearby circles, disguised as curiosity, but deeply intentional. Reconnaissance defines this phase quietly. Every piece of gathered information shapes the strategy for what comes next. Information gathering defines the current phase because approaching without preparation feels too reckless and dangerous. Our first card here is the Knight of Pentacles, confirming slow, methodical forward movement happening right now. Knight of Pentacles represents the most reliable worker in the deck, never rushing and never cutting any corners. Progress is measured in small, consistent daily actions, not dramatic gestures or grand public declarations of intent. Daily routines are being restructured to create natural opportunities for contact, positioning carefully without forcing anything. Schedules adjusted quietly to increase the probability of crossing paths, and that adjustment was not accidental. Groundwork is being laid brick by brick because the Knight of Pentacles understands that trust rebuilds slowly. Financial matters tied to shared history are being organized, loose ends addressed with meticulous, responsible attention. Practical proof is assembled before any appeal gets made, because actions need to speak before words this time. Reliability is demonstrated through consistent follow-through on commitments, even small ones nobody else would notice. Patterns of dependable behavior are established intentionally, building a track record that speaks clearly without needing any words. Moving to the next card, the Six of Wands arrives, confirming recent actions already produce visible early results. Six of Wands shows a figure riding through a crowd, recognized publicly for effort that others now acknowledge. Progress made behind the scenes starts surfacing, and people around both of you begin noticing the visible shift. Conversations about the two of you happen in wider circles, and general consensus leans strongly toward reconciliation. Allies form organically, without recruitment. People who independently concluded that this connection genuinely matters and deserves repair. Support from unexpected sources materializes, offering encouragement and practical assistance that neither side specifically requested. Groundswell of collective encouragement strengthens resolve, and the mounting external support validates every difficult step already taken. Momentum is no longer private. It has crossed into territory where others witness and validate the changes occurring. Public acknowledgement of changed behavior reinforces internal work, creating a feedback loop that accelerates ongoing transformation. External recognition serves as confirmation that the effort is landing, proof being registered by everyone watching closely. Visibility of progress adds natural accountability, because regression now would be noticed by more than just you two. Our final card is the Ten of Wands, confirming that the burden being carried right now is enormous. Ten of Wands shows a figure hauling heavy staffs forward, strained but refusing to set any down. Carrying this volume of responsibility forward requires endurance, and every step taken costs significant physical energy. Exhaustion from the effort is visible, but Ten of Wands confirms they keep moving regardless of strain. Multiple tasks are juggled simultaneously, practical logistics and personal growth and repair all demanding attention at once. Delegation is not available here because this labor must be personally performed. No shortcuts and no representatives permitted. Completion sits visible on the horizon, close enough to motivate continued effort despite the heaviness of the load. Final stretch before arrival is confirmed, and determination to reach that destination overrides every impulse to quit. Every card confirms action already underway. Nothing theoretical remains, and the momentum has become impossible to reverse. So the energy descending now carries confessions never meant for daylight, truths this person guards with their life. That private conversation only scratched the surface, because what remains unspoken runs far deeper than what escaped. Layers of hidden feeling exist beneath the words they shared, confessions too volatile to risk speaking aloud yet. Certain truths feel like loaded weapons, capable of changing everything permanently once released into the open. Silence protects the most dangerous admissions, the ones that would leave them completely defenseless if ever exposed. Rehearsing those confessions happens nightly in the dark, whispered into pillows that absorb words nobody else will hear. Weight of carrying unspoken truths alone creates pressure that builds daily, compressing their chest from the inside. Our first card, exposing hidden confessions, is the Nine of Cups, revealing a secret wish held tightly. Behind every composed exterior lives a singular, overwhelming desire, and that desire centers entirely and exclusively around you. Nine of Cups represents the wish card in tarot, confirming they carry a private fantasy of complete reconciliation. Imagining a future where none of the damage exists occupies them constantly, a vision protected almost religiously. Permanence defines this wish completely. It has calcified into something that restructures every other priority around it. Secretly, they already decided what they want, and no logical argument has overridden that decision, even once. Buried beneath the wish lives a confession. They believe they do not deserve what they are asking for. Unworthiness haunts every hopeful thought, creating a painful cycle where desire and shame orbit each other without resolution. Wanting you while simultaneously believing they forfeited the right, that contradiction eats at them in complete private silence. Shame around that intensity creates its own private prison, and the key to release sits beyond their reach. Nine of Cups reveals internal bargains made privately, negotiations trading future behavior for present forgiveness. Promises whispered to their own reflection carry binding weight. Commitments made in solitude feeling more sacred than vows. Moving to the next card, The devil surfaces and exposes the obsessive undercurrent beneath every confession. Attachment to you operates beyond rational control, a gravitational pull they tried resisting and failed every time. The devil confirms a fixation they consider shameful, the inability to detach no matter how logic demands it. Jealousy, they will never confess, burns quietly, surfacing whenever your name appears in connection with anyone else. Possessive thoughts they intellectually reject still flood in uninvited, creating internal arguments between what they feel and believe. One hidden confession the devil drags forward is this: they have monitored your presence from calculated distance. Watching without engaging became compulsive. Checking without reaching out because contact felt risky, but distance felt unbearable. Obsession of this nature terrifies them because it contradicts every image of independence they carefully constructed. Needing you this completely dismantles the version they present publicly, and that vulnerability remains their deepest secret. Our final card is the Five of Pentacles, revealing the confession they guard most fiercely of all. Underneath every display of confidence lives a devastating fear, the terror that your door is already closed. Five of Pentacles shows two figures passing an illuminated window, too afraid to knock and ask for entry. That image mirrors their exact internal position, standing outside warmth they desperately crave but feel unworthy of entering. Warmth glows beyond that window, but fear convinces them they have forfeited every right to approach it. Fear of hearing a definitive no paralyzes them more than any outcome, because that word would be irreversible. Rejection would confirm every negative belief they carry about themselves, validating a narrative they have fought to dismantle. Secretly, they would rather exist in agonizing uncertainty than risk a conclusive answer that permanently severs possibility. Limbo feels safer than closure, because inside limbo, the fantasy still breathes and the wish still holds power. Every confession exposed here was buried intentionally. None of it was ever meant to surface beyond silence. All right, the energy settles into what the near future holds, and what arrives next carries undeniable significance. That private conversation set a chain of events into motion, and the first visible result appears within weeks. Contact is coming, not indirect through mutual connections, but a direct, personal approach aimed specifically at you. When that moment arrives, it will feel sudden, but months of preparation and internal work quietly preceded it. Nothing about the timing is accidental. Every variable was considered before the decision to approach was finalized. Words spoken will land differently than anything exchanged before, because the person delivering them has fundamentally changed. Raw honesty stripped of protective armor is what that conversation carries, and its weight will surprise you. Our first card for the near future is the Sun, confirming clarity and warmth flood the path ahead. Confusion dominating recent months dissolves rapidly, replaced by understanding that feels almost startlingly obvious in hindsight. What was previously hidden becomes illuminated instantly, and both sides see the connection for exactly what it is. Lightness returns to a dynamic that felt impossibly heavy, and laughter re-enters spaces where only tension previously lived. Overwhelming relief washes over you both unexpectedly, arriving only when pretending stops and authentic truth completely takes over. Joy ahead is not manufactured or forced. It emerges naturally once the final barriers of pride come down. Moving to the final card, the Two of Cups confirms mutual exchange that restores genuine balance between you. Two of Cups represents the purest form of partnership, two people standing equal and choosing each other consciously. Reciprocity defines what comes next, not one side chasing while the other retreats, but both arriving simultaneously. Here is my advice as we close, and I need you to absorb every word with complete attention. When contact arrives, do not react from old wounds. Pause long enough to assess who stands before you. Recognizing the difference between who caused damage and who stands before you now, that distinction matters enormously. Discernment does not require closing the door permanently. It requires staying present long enough to evaluate genuinely. Protection and openness can coexist inside the same decision, and finding that balance is your greatest strength here. Accept tangible proof over promises, because consistent demonstrated change outweighs any verbal declaration, however beautifully delivered. Boundaries are not negotiable, but willingness to witness genuine transformation should remain open, without rigid conditions. Pace belongs entirely to you, and nobody else holds authority to dictate how quickly forgiveness should arrive. Trust your body when it signals safety. That physical compass has navigated you accurately through every difficult chapter. Honoring your own timeline is not resistance. It is the foundation upon which authentic reconnection must be built. Patience with your own process is not delay. It is the wisest form of self-respect available. Let me bring you back to the message now, because it ties every part of this reading together. A private conversation about you happened recently, and the cards confirmed what was said changes everything ahead. Looking across every card today, the Magician confirmed deliberate vulnerability, and Three of Swords exposed raw heartbreak. Queen of Cups revealed staggering depth. Wheel of Fortune activated momentum, and Four of Swords honored retreat. Seven of Wands validated boundaries. The Empress confirmed worth, and King of Wands exposed their inner fire.